you canceled the plans. You told yourself you'd feel guilty about it. But the second you closed that message, you felt something else entirely. Relief. Pure, quiet, almost shameful relief. If that's ever happened to you, your brain is doing something incredibly specific. And psychology has a name for it. Visual, black screen. One sentence fades in, you've canceled plans and felt relief. Slow heartbeat sound. Dark vignette. Then quick cut montage of cozy apartment, rainy window, someone in pajamas with a book, a warm lamp glowing at night. Most people assume that preferring to stay home is shyness, or laziness, or even some kind of social disorder. But psychology reveals something far more fascinating. People who genuinely love staying at home aren't broken, they're wired differently at the neurological level, and that wiring gives them some surprising advantages that extroverts will never fully understand. In the next few minutes, we're going to break down 6 deep psychological reasons behind this behavior and what your brain is actually doing when it pulls you toward home. Stay until the end, because point 5 is the one most home lovers don't even know about themselves, and it might completely change how you see your own mind. Visual, text overlay on dark background, why your brain prefers staying home. Slow zoom in. Subtle eerie music. Every time you stay in a familiar, low-stimulation environment, your own home, your brain releases a small, consistent trickle of dopamine. Not a flood. A trickle. And here's the disturbing part, that trickle is actually more satisfying to some brains than the big dopamine spike from social events. Why? Because the spike always crashes. The trickle never does. Think about the last party you attended. It was exciting before, maybe fine during, but afterward you felt drained, empty, and needed a full day to recover. Meanwhile, the friend who stayed home that night woke up the next morning already at 100%. Research in human behavior shows that introverted brains are actually more sensitive to dopamine, they require less of it to feel satisfied. So a quiet evening at home hits their reward system just as hard as a night out hits someone else's. If you feel guilty for choosing home over going out, stop. You're not avoiding life. You're optimizing your neurology. Visual, animation of 2 dopamine graphs side by side, one with massive spikes and crashes labeled social event, one with a flat steady line labeled home. Text overlay, your brain prefers the steady win. People who love staying home often describe busy environments as overwhelming, not uncomfortable, not awkward, but overwhelming. And there's a real neurological reason for that. Their brains don't filter out background stimuli the same way other brains do. A loud restaurant isn't just loud to them, it's every conversation, every clink of glass, every chair scraping, all at equal volume, all at once. You've probably been to a crowded mall and felt completely fine, but your friend needed to leave after 20 minutes, face flushed, saying, "I don't know why I feel so weird." They weren't being dramatic. Their brain was processing 4 times the sensory data yours was. Research shows that roughly 15 to 20% of humans are highly sensitive people whose nervous systems are demonstrably more reactive to external stimulation. Home isn't a retreat for these people, it's regulation. If crowds drain you fast, you're not weak. You're processing more. Schedule deliberate recovery time at home without guilt. Visual, stock footage of a crowded mall or subway, then a hard cut to a quiet empty room. Crowd noise fades completely to silence. Text overlay, your brain processes everything. All at once. Here's something that will make you see home lovers completely differently. For people who love staying in, the home isn't just a building, it's a psychological extension of their identity. Every corner, every object, every arrangement is a curated version of who they are without any social performance required. Outside the home, they have to manage how they're perceived. Inside it, they don't. And that freedom is deeply, powerfully addictive. Ever notice how some people seem to become completely different people when they're at your place versus theirs? At their own home they're relaxed, funny, fully themselves, but at your place they're slightly stiffer, slightly off. That's not coincidence. That's the identity fortress doing its job. Psychology calls this environmental self-extension, and personalized home environments lower cortisol, the stress hormone, in a measurable, documented way. Intentionally design your home environment, because the objects and spaces around you are actively shaping your mental state and your sense of self. Visual, time-lapse of someone decorating a room, plants, books, personal objects arranged carefully. Warm lighting throughout. Text, your home is your psychology made physical. Most people think home lovers dislike people. That's wrong. What they dislike is the energy cost of certain social interactions. Think of social energy like a bank account. Extroverts deposit energy through socializing, while home lovers spend it. And like any resource, they want to spend it where it gives the highest return. A crowded party of people they barely know? Terrible return on investment. A deep one-on-one conversation at home with someone they trust? Priceless. The person who declines every group invitation but shows up immediately when a close friend needs them at midnight, that's not antisocial behavior, that's selective investment. Neuroscience research shows that introverted brains use more blood flow in the prefrontal cortex during social interaction, which is the area responsible for planning and self-monitoring. They're working harder socially, so no wonder they need to recharge. Stop judging your social preferences by extrovert standards and start measuring the quality of your connections rather than the quantity of your appearances. Visual, split-screen animation. Left side shows a crowded noisy party with an energy meter dropping. Right side shows two people in a quiet kitchen talking with the energy meter holding steady. Text, not antisocial. Strategic. Here's where it gets really interesting, and this is the one most home lovers have never consciously recognized about themselves. People who prefer home don't just avoid the outside world, they build elaborate internal worlds instead. The quiet of home isn't empty for them. It's full of thoughts, analysis, creativity, and self-reflection that never gets the chance to surface in noisy environments. Their mindset defaults to deep processing mode the moment external stimulation drops. You know the person who seems quiet at the party but then sends you a message 3 days later with an insight about the conversation that completely blows your mind? That's not late thinking. That's deep thinking, it just needed silence to arrive. Psychologists call this default mode network activation. When external stimulation decreases, a specific network in the brain lights up that's responsible for imagination, future planning, and self-awareness. Home lovers spend more time in this state, and that time has real, measurable cognitive benefits. If you find yourself doing your best thinking at home, in the shower, or on quiet walks, protect that time ruthlessly, because that's where your best ideas live. Visual, brain animation with one region glowing bright, labeled default mode network. Text overlay, stillness isn't emptiness. It's your brain at full power. Every human being wears what psychologists call a social mask, the version of yourself you present to the outside world. It's not fake, it's adaptive, but maintaining it requires real cognitive energy. For people who prefer home, that mask feels heavier than it does for others. The mental tricks required to stay on, remembering names, reading social cues, managing how you're perceived, it all adds up fast. Home is the only place they get to take it off completely. Think about that moment you walk through your front door after a long social day, collapse onto the sofa, and feel your whole body exhale. That's not tiredness. That's your social mask coming off, and it weighs more than you realize until it's gone. Carl Jung described this as the persona, and psychological research confirms that sustained persona management depletes executive function resources. At home, that depletion stops and recovery begins immediately. If you feel exhausted after social events that should have been fun, you're not boring or weak, your brain is simply processing the cost of social performance, and home is where you reset. Visual, close-up of someone slowly removing glasses and setting them down in a dimly lit room. Soft exhale sound effect. Text, home equals the only place you're allowed to be fully yourself. So here's what psychology is actually telling us about people who love staying home. They're not antisocial, they're not broken, and they're not afraid of the world. Their brains are optimized for depth over breadth, for quality over volume, for internal richness over external performance. The world pushes everyone toward constant social output, always available, always visible, always on. But the human brain didn't evolve for that, and for some brains, staying home isn't retreat. It's the most psychologically sophisticated thing they can do. Knowing how your brain works isn't an excuse to avoid growth, it's the foundation for building a life that actually fits you. If this video made you see yourself differently, drop a comment below and tell me, are you a home lover, and when did you stop feeling guilty about it? Hit like if this shifted something, and subscribe if you want more of the psychology most people never talk about. What if the way you talk to yourself inside your own head is secretly controlling every decision you make, without you even knowing it? Next video, the dark psychology of your inner voice, and the disturbing way it was shaped without your consent. See you there.